All right. Thank you, Julie. Good to see you. So I'm wearing a mask because I am within 6 feet of my colleague, Mr. Cooper. We're going to actually start today's live off with a drawing for the Feed Norwood page. So the Feed Norwood page had received a couple of donations that somebody wanted to give a couple of gift cards away for folks who commented, shared on the page, or liked the page, and as well talked about something that they liked about Norwood. So we're actually going to do that drawing live now for the Feed Norwood page. We have the names of everyone who commented. So 2 people from that group will win a $50 gift card to the OCC that was donated. And for each of those, one will also be donated to a Feed Family in Need. And we actually just received a donation of a couple of gift cards to Honeydew Donuts. So we will do those as well. I'm going to turn my camera slightly to the side here. Everyone can see Mr. Cooper. He will do the official drawing for Feed Norwood's gift card giveaway to get started with. So this is for a $50 gift card to the Old Colonial. Let me make sure this is the right envelope. Yes, it is. And there'll also be one donated. Oh, Bernie dropped a few. So Mr. Cooper, if you could give us the first name for our drawing. And we'll reach out to these folks sometime tomorrow via social media.
And the first name is Kathleen O'Brien.
Kathleen O'Brien. So Kathleen O'Brien, congratulations. You have won one of the OCC's gift cards. And we will have our team reach out to you via social media. The second of the OCC gift card, because we actually have 2 of them.
All right.
And
number 2 is Maritza Pinell.
Maritza Pinell, great. And we actually have a couple of Honeydew gift cards to give away as well. Hopefully the town manager's name is somewhere in there.
Yeah, I hope mine is too.
Don't know if we added them. So we have 5 $10 gift cards to Honeydew to give away. And again, folks, if you haven't liked or shared the Feed Norwood page, please do so. We are getting some pretty good reach on it, and we want to make sure everyone knows that's where we're putting all of our food security related information. Name number 1.
Andrew Sullivan.
Andrew Sullivan.
Here we go.
Thank you very much, Andrew. And we'll get some of these comments, if these people are okay with it, posted as well soon.
We'll take one off the top here.
All right.
Aaron Randall.
Aaron Randall.
Yep, sorry.
We'll get all these names in the post as well. And we're going to talk about restaurants. We've gotten a few questions about that and what we're doing to help support some of the restaurants in town in just a moment.
Uh-oh, Paula Pelagi.
Paula Pelagi.
Hey, Paula.
All right, thank you. We appreciate everything she does for the community. And we got two left. Yep.
Is Sarah Vogel-Williams.
Sarah Vogel-Williams. Sarah Williams. And again, we took these right off the Facebook page, so we have everyone's, we'll be able to send everyone a message and let them know. And last of the Honeydew gift cards, and we'll probably end up mailing these out just to be safe. The last one.
Yep, I got 2 there. Oh,
Is
only
it
one winner.
Is it Tony Mazzucco?
Only one, Jackie Gifford.
Jackie Gifford. All right, and Jackie Gifford wins a Honeydew gift card. So thank you to everyone who's been watching and supporting the Feed Norwood page, and thank you to Mr. Cooper for being the individual to draw all of these for us, as you are always the number 1 person to signify virtue. Oh, Bernie's going to check the temperature real quick.
Yep, he passes.
I passed. We've been experimenting with our thermometers in town hall. Thank you, Bernie, as we're gearing up to possibly have to do some temp checks as we look to reopen. Important to note, now that I'm not 6 feet from somebody, I am taking off my mask. I'm the only one in my physical office. So welcome, everyone. We just finished our drawing for the Feed Norwood page. If you haven't had a chance to, check out the page, and please like it and share it so that other folks can see the different food initiatives we're working on. I'm going to jump right in with some COVID updates. We've gotten a few questions in particular about what's going to be opening up. I think, as everyone knows, this past Monday, the governor announced phase 1 of the state's opening plan and what businesses are able to begin opening, both on Monday the 18th and on Monday the 25th, and the different phases. So starting on Monday, between this week and next week, you have construction and manufacturing with some strict state guidelines. And by next Monday, office space, hair salons and barbershops, car washes, pet grooming, laboratories, places of worship, and retail for curbside or remote pickup. So this is the beginning of the Commonwealth's plan to reopen the community and reopen communities in general. And we follow that plan. We don't really have the discretion at the local level to go beyond that plan, to extend some of these dates unless there was a serious local public health directed need to do so. But if we did find a need to do so, we would, of course, look at doing what's in the best interest of the community. So that's sort of phase one. So this is the beginning of the reopening. The way the reopening is going to work is every couple of weeks, we're going to have hit another phase if all the numbers are good. And I'll talk about the numbers in a second. So we're in phase one, we'll enter into phase two, more things can open up. Phase three, more things can open up. Phase four is sort of a return to the new normal, if you will. So as we go through each phase, the state needs to see certain targets. It's really the number of hospitalizations that the state needs to see. That's really the key number. The total number of folks testing positive is a metric that you look at. However, as testing expands, you're always going to have more people testing positive. You do want to see a decrease in the number of people testing positive overall. However, it's important to note that as we test more people and as more people get out there in the community, you are going to see test numbers increase. The key figure is those hospitalization rates. One of the challenges the country faced early on as we began our COVID adventure, if you will, is a lack of PPE and a concern that hospitals will be overwhelmed. We were very successful in Massachusetts in that our hospitals were not overwhelmed, and we don't want that to happen. We want the numbers to drop down sufficiently so that as there are small spikes of COVID here and there, the hospitals are able to absorb it, we're able to treat people, we're able to take care of them. Now, some folks have talked about, why, if we have hospital availability, why is that a concern? Why can't you just open everything all up at once and let it go quickly? So the hospital availability, if you remember, it's a concern for two issues. One, COVID is a dangerous disease. It's a dangerous virus. In ideal circumstances, if you can treat everyone, if you can take care of them, if you can provide them with a ventilator, the worst case scenarios, the survival rate is pretty good. When you don't have the PPE to help the person and to help the person, the provider, when you don't have a ventilator, when you don't have the supplies that you need in the hospital beds, it becomes very difficult to treat that person. So as long as we have that accessibility of the ICU beds, those are the intensive care beds, we know we can treat people. We know that the numbers will creep up as we open up society. We don't want it to creep up too high to where it becomes a problem. The problem with hospitals being overwhelmed, it's not just the COVID cases that would go to the hospital, it's all the other things that we can't do. And we've kept enough people have stayed away from the hospitals long enough that you're starting to see that, where folks who have issues that may be elective, they may not need to be dealt with right away, are now becoming a serious problem. So a small elective surgery, if you can't get it done, becomes a bigger problem. So we've acted correctly, I think, in Massachusetts to make sure we've maintained our hospital capacity. It's really, really important. Hospitals and doctors' offices are starting to open up if and when they can meet certain safety standards. I want to talk about that for a moment before I talk about phase 2 and 3. Some businesses will not automatically open right at each of these phases. And some of our town operations, which we'll talk about a little bit later, are not necessarily going to open at each of these phases. Businesses have to be ready. They have to have a strict set of standards that they have to meet. They have to self-certify that they have to meet those standards. They have to be able to call back their workforce. They have to be able to get people prepared and to make sure that their facilities are prepared. An example of that is houses of worship. Houses of worship are allowed to open as of this week at a 40% plus social distancing capacity. So that's going to be a little bit different per facility. We actually did a call earlier today with the majority of the faith leaders in the community and representing the different houses of worship. And I would say better than half are not planning to open this weekend or next weekend. There's a handful of churches that are ready to go this weekend, but I would say probably 3/4 are absolutely not for a week or two. And at least half or so said they're looking mid to late June, if not early July, before they actually go back to opening up. They want to make sure they can do it safely. They want to make sure that they can take care of their members. So you may see certain businesses or houses of worship, whatever it is that you want to open up, that are choosing not to open up, and that's okay. We do want to still continue to make sure we slow the spread and we slowly reopen society and we take care of people, and that when nobody should rush to open, we should only open when we're ready, whether you're a business or a house of worship or anything else. Anyone should only open up when you're ready. If you don't feel comfortable going somewhere, that's understood. Go only when you feel comfortable. We would like to avoid a rush on services. I know there's a lot of us who have been looking to get into the hairstylist or get into the barber for a while. Those will be open by appointment only if they're able to as of Monday. Be conscious about practicing your good social distancing and wearing PPE, your mask primarily, when you're in these locations. So that's phase 1. There's some things opening up. Phase 2 could come as soon as June 8th. And I want to talk about that for just a moment as well. June 8th is 3 weeks from the phase 1 opening. If all the numbers continue to be good and everything is on track, you could see phase 2 as soon as June 8th. It could be June 15th. It could be July 1st. It could be kicked out much later than that. But the point is, we're getting closer to it. Now, we all want to be safe, and I'm sure everyone wants to make sure that we are safe and we get to stores and restaurants and bars and everything else opening up as soon as we safely can. So how do we get there? How do we make sure that that phase 2 starts on June 8th so that we can go into some retail stores, we can go get our nails done, we can go eat in a restaurant if you want to do it? It's really about personal responsibility. If we all minimize our contact when we don't have to, if we continue to wear masks, if we continue to wash our hands, practice good hygiene, if we stay home when we're sick, if we avoid people when we think we're sick, we have to continue to do those things in phase 1, in phase 2, in phase 3, and in phase 4, and in perpetuity. The more we do those things, the more we take that personal responsibility, the more that it becomes part of the social norm to do these things, the faster and safer we'll be able to open up, and we'll be able to ensure that these things won't happen again, that we won't have that second spike, or that when we do, if it starts cropping up again in the fall or in the winter, because we're not necessarily over the hurdle yet, that we're able to better handle it. So it's really up to every single one of us. There's no public health program, there's no government program that can do this. It's really up to us as individuals to make sure we're making good decisions, we're making wise decisions, we're washing our hands, we're washing our hands, we're washing our hands, we're being clean and sanitary, and that businesses, whether you work at a business, whether you own a business, that you're doing the same thing. We are all in this together, but it's personal responsibility and individual responsibility that's going to let us get to the point where we can go back to a restaurant with friends, we can go out to a bar, we can go to a pool and do all those things that we want to do. The new normal will be different, but we can get there, and we can get there in a reasonably quick amount of time safely if we all practice some personal responsibility. Phase 3, which could come as soon as June 29th, now that's the most aggressive timeline it could possibly happen, would see casinos, bars, gyms, and museums, and a few other cultural amenities opening up. Now, that might be a bit of a stretch to get there by the end of June, but it is possible if the numbers continue to decline and the numbers continue to show progress in the direction that we want them to go in. And then as soon as late July, you could see larger venues open. I realistically think that might be the fall before that happens, even if we're hitting all of our numbers, because as each segment of society begins to open up, we're going to continue to have an increase in cases. You're going to have little outbreaks here. The ability to do the contact tracing and to get those folks into quarantine and to get them tested quickly is going to help. It's going to help us recover quicker than we did before, but we need to be able to, again, it's that personal responsibility is going to allow us to get there. So phase 4 could be late July, could later be in the fall. The government, the state government could adjust any of the phases and what's included in some of the phases. As an example, phase 2 includes restaurants, but they haven't released specific guidance for restaurants just yet. So we're anticipating that it's either going to be 25% capacity or 40% capacity plus social distancing. It's really up to the state to release those guidelines, and we'll have to follow them when they do come. Excuse me for 1 second. Great locally owned business. Now, what about town facilities? Because we've gotten quite a few questions about those, camps, pools, and then the library, the dump, the civic. I'll start with the easier items. We shouldn't call it the dump. It's really, it's not even a transfer station, but we call it the dump. The recycling center, I guess, is the appropriate word. Will be open this Saturday for all of its regular services. However, staff will be there. There are no staff available to assist. Sometimes the DPW crew are there. They'll try to give you a little hand taking something out of the car. They like to reduce the burden on you and help some older folks with dropping some of their items off or picking some of their items up. They're not able to do that yet. We have to keep them safe, and we have to practice good social distancing. There's signage that's going to be up. So you can bring up your cardboard, you can pick up compost, you can do some of the things that we haven't been able to do this past week, this coming Saturday. Just understand that they may hold you at the gate until a few folks have come in and gone. There's no congregating, and the DPW staff won't be able to help you because we're trying to minimize that interaction. It's important that we follow the rules, that everyone stays polite and helpful, and there may be a little bit of a delay getting in, as I know some folks are going to want to rush to get some items in that they've been hanging out to the house for a while. So if you can wait a few weeks, it's not the worst thing in the world, just to make sure we can open up safely. Again, we want to open as many services as we can. We just have to do it safely and in a way that it doesn't cause us to take any steps back. So if everyone works together, we can make that happen. But the dump will be open as of, the recycling center will be open as of this Saturday. We met a couple times this week. We believe at this point in time that at least one of the pools and camps should be able to run this summer. Now, there's a couple of caveats there. They're allowable in phase 2. However, the challenge is we don't exactly know when phase 2 is going to happen. We think it's late June. We'd like it to be late June. We're confident it's going to be. Phase 2 will be early June. So we're confident by late June we can have the pools up and running. But remember, these phases could change at any time. The dates could get kicked out 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. That could happen. We're going to plan on camps being open. We'll have reduced capacity at the camps this year. The need to reduce the total number of individuals available will make fewer seats available. So that'll be a challenge we've got to overcome. We'll believe we'll have at least one, if not both, pools open. We haven't seen the Department of Public Health guidelines on the pools yet. So there's some CDC guidance that's out there, but we have to wait for the state to give us specific guidance. That may impact the hours of the pool. It may impact certainly the number of people who can be in the pool. We'll definitely have to take a look at it when it comes out, but we're confident at this point, if everything goes according to plan, and plans don't always work out, that we'll be able to have pools and camps open for the summer at a reduced capacity. So if the pool normally may have 100 people in it, we may be limiting that to 20 or 40, depending on what the guidance is. We'll have to make some changes to the chemical level in the pool as well. So we think we'll be able to do it. We're planning on doing it. We're going to move forward as if we can. It will ultimately depend on whether or not we are in the appropriate phase for that to happen. But still good news overall that we think pools and camps are going to be able to open this summer without a problem. Some of our other facilities we're tying to the different phases of the plan. But it doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to open as soon as one of those phases starts. And it may be several weeks afterwards. What we're looking at a couple of different options where we would end up opening and complying a couple of weeks after we've hit a certain phase, mainly because we don't want to hit a phase and rush to meet a date that's really an arbitrary date. So an example of that is the Civic. While we're confident we're going to be able to run pools and camps this summer, the Civic as a fitness facility really won't be able to be open until phase 3, according to the state guidelines. We may look at opening a few weeks after phase 3. We have to make sure that the facility is ready. We have to make sure it's going to get usage. It is relatively low use in the summer. We also may look at when we open in certain phases, because we're not rushing to meet a date just to meet a date. We want to do it safely. We may look at reduced hours at the Civic for the first couple of weeks after we're able to get it open. But it's going to be challenging running camps and pools in a post-COVID world as it is. So we're not really sure if the priority would be the building versus other items. We're going to look at things like hours for folks who are seniors or possibly immunocompromised, but the Civic will open its facility a couple of weeks after we hit phase 3. The library is another area that we want to get up and running, but safely. We're going to be able within the next week or two to offer a sort of a curbside or delivery service. We're working on the mechanics of that now. A lot of libraries started doing this initially, and the logistics of it are very, very challenging. We have a great library staff. They're more than capable of doing it. It's just a little complicated to get it to work right and to do it in a safe manner. We also still have to maintain in our buildings. It's not just about opening it to the public when we're able to. We have to be able to maintain some distancing from staff, for staff. We do know that folks do have to work together, and there's going to be people within 6 feet of each other. They'll be wearing masks, they'll be wearing PPE, but these are a lot of the considerations we have to work out and work through. So we know within a couple of weeks we'll have some curbside pickup or delivery options for, I shouldn't say curbside, so pickup or delivery options available at the library. The actual building may not open well into phase 3. It's going to be a case-by-case basis, because to sort of rearrange the building so that it can be open to the public requires a lot of work. It's not necessarily costly work, it's just timely logistical work. We have to remove furniture, we have to move furniture in and out. We may not be able to do the curbside and or the pickup service and open what's inside. So we're really looking at what's the service that people need and how we can provide it. We've got to shut down some computer stations. So the library team is working on it every day. We're going to have a plan together, but the physical opening of the library may be delayed a couple weeks into phase 3. Could come sooner if possible, but we're looking at probably several weeks past phase 3. We want to get our delivery service up and running sort of first, our pickup service up and running first, get our feet wet with that, make sure we work on the building. We do know, like a lot of buildings, you're going to see plexiglass shields in a lot of places. You're going to see different setups and some self-services where they're available. It's going to take time to get all those things ready. So we're going to be we're not rushing to get those things done. We want to do them right, because we know some of these changes are going to be going on for a long time. And our model here is we never want to be back in this situation. So we're going to do everything we can do to make sure we're not back in this situation, balancing the need to try to help out those who do need these services, like the library and the Civic. Town Hall will likely be probably one of the last facilities to open back up for a couple of reasons. One of them is we're able to offer just about every service digitally or online or by appointment only. There's one or two small services that we're not yet able to offer that we think within the next week or two we'll be able to. And we do want to change some of the norms around behavior and use of services where we all need to adapt to reducing interaction when it's not necessary. That helps everyone else. So we look at some of the transactions and some of the interaction we have here, and is it necessary? I would rather reduce that here and allow opening somewhere else. We also have a couple of, as an older building, as a historic building, it's a little bit more difficult to make some of the adjustments here to make sure I can keep my staff safe and to make sure we can keep the public safe as they come in. We're going to work on it. We do also have an elevator project in Town Hall over the summer that will reduce the building's ADA compliance for a couple of weeks over the summer. That's going to make it more difficult to serve individuals. So Town Hall could possibly be July or August before it's open up, if not a little bit later, because we've got to make sure we phase things in. We've got to make sure we're ready to serve the public as we go forward with Town Hall. So that may be one of the last facilities to open up, but all of our services are available online, except I think actually marriage licenses. So we believe in about 2 weeks we'll be able to take them on a case-by-case basis, appointment only for Norwood residents, and get them taken care of. So that's the majority of our municipal services and when they'll open up. But all these dates are in flux based on when the phasing is, and we're trying to tie in, as I said, our I forgot to send this earlier. Phase in our opening with somewhere along the lines of what the state's doing. So in brief, that's how we're opening up municipal facilities. We've gotten a couple of other questions that I'll go through, and as always, we take questions in the we will take questions in the comments. Food security. I actually have a couple of updates and a couple of questions. So a few folks have asked, is Feed Norwood a service or is Feed Norwood just information? And it's mainly information. Feed Norwood is our single social media page. Is the town hall open for bike helmets? That's a good question. We'll get back to you. We will find a way to do our annual helmet program. Whether or not we physically open town hall for it, we'll find a way to get bike helmets out and do our regular bike programs. Feed Norwood is our social media presence for all things food security related. So we wanted to create one page to try to push out all the different information on food security that we have in the community. So there's sort of municipal programs there, and then there's non-municipal programs there as well. So we've got great volunteers who are working on that page for us to get that information out there. A lot of people are contacting the page with questions about food security. That's fine. Some people are more comfortable contacting a social media presence than calling the Citizen Information Center, but it's really there to get information out about all the different food security programs we have. The page is continuing to growing in likes and shares, and we are hearing from people that they're seeing it on social media. So check out the Feed Norwood page if you haven't had a chance to. Two of the programs that we are doing in Norwood that are unique, and we keep get questions out, and they're great questions, our weekly family meal program. We are particularly proud of this program because this is a Norwood only program. It got some press coverage recently on I think Channel 4, and a few folks have commented and said, well, other towns are doing this too. They're not. Other towns are doing the breakfast and lunch program. There are no other towns in the Commonwealth doing an evening family meal program that's entirely locally operated and locally funded. So kudos to our cafeteria staff for doing that, and to Eli, the food service director, for making it happen, and Norwood Bank was funding the program through May and June. This program, served, this week it was 468 families. So that's easily, probably close to 2,000 people received a meal through this one weekly family meal program. 468 families were served with the school's weekly family meal program. So everyone in Norwood should be proud of our cafeteria staff for putting it together and for doing the work. And this is a unique opportunity, or a unique item that the community is doing that you're not seeing anywhere else. We're doing the breakfast and lunches. Tens of thousands of meals are being served that way, but this weekly family meal program is a unique Norwood program. We've also set up our temporary food pantry, the Mustang Pantry. Stacy just commented, our great assistant public health director and public health nurse, that helmets are available for pickup at the health department by appointment. So give the health department a call and they'll be able to make sure you get a helmet. So our Mustang Pantry served over 200 families this week. We actually had about 40 turnaways. We do take the names and numbers of folks who were turned away, and we have other means available to get them resources so nobody gets left behind and nobody goes without. But it served over 200 families this week. We actually had a couple of families from another community, and we have contacted that community, and they'll be taking care of them. They were in the line of folks who, after we had run out of food, and we got their name and number, and we had a few volunteers who helped out with that. It says, can you tell how many are watching if we don't say we were here? Yes, I can. There's a little number up in the corner that gives us, it looks like it's about 60 people. It goes up and down, and I can never really tell. But yes, we can tell if people are here. Occasionally the comments are helpful, especially if they're positive comments, just so I know that the feed is still going. I do have the live timer, but I otherwise don't see the activity, and the comments don't always pick up, but we can generally see the number of people are here. So the number of people served at the Mustang Pantry, it was over 600 people. So there were 200 families that came, and over 600 people. There were well over 100 in there were about 45 veterans, well over 100 seniors. There were about 140 people under the age of 18 in the families that we're serving. So it's really a wide swath of the community. The line at one point did back up to Nickel Street, so it was quite a line for a short period of time. But those are two Norwood unique to Norwood initiatives where we've set up a temporary food pantry as well as the weekly family meal program. And we're going to continue these programs as long as we feel there's a need for them. We're hoping that as the economy continues to open up and we roll towards summer, maybe some of them can ramp down in late June or July, but we're going to evaluate them every month, and we're going to make sure we continue to take care of the community. We have our daily senior meal program as well through the senior center. We've seen an increase in need there as well, and an increase in participation in that program. And we may look at an option for continuing that over the summer as well. We are looking at the waivers necessary to continue the school breakfast and lunch program over the summer as well. We'd like to continue doing that. We need to find a way to make sure it happens. We feel confident that we will at this point in time, although things are always to be determined, but we're never going to we're never going to let anyone end up going hungry. Question from Sarah, are you running out of food? Are you running out of the food pantry? So the short and long answer is yes. The Mustang Pantry was completely wiped out this past Wednesday. So the next drop-off date, so this is if you're able to donate food, I believe is next Friday. We can get the information on there. The information is always on Feed Norwood. We order food from a number of vendors. We have some, one of them is Costco, one of them is a Cisco Foods. We also have Nassif Produce in Fall River that we're working with, and we have a small farm operation out of Milton that we've worked with. So this past week, the majority of people were able to get fresh produce, canned and boxed goods, milk, and eggs as well. So we're looking to ramp up for the next pantry. We do purchase a lot, but the donations do two things. First of all, that's actually where the bulk of the food comes from, is the donations. And they often are the things that we can't get from a supplier. So if you go out and you buy condiments because you want people to help them, or a nice brand of cereal, we're able to get usually peanut butter and jelly from a vendor, but we can't get some of the other items that folks get, and that's why it's particularly helpful for the donation. So we're going to need a big push. You'll see it probably coming out on the weekend for a big delivery, a big drop-off next Friday. So the following Wednesday, we can be fit and ready to serve around the 200 families that we need. We're going to continue to increase our ordering to see how the need goes and see how it goes up. And we're going to continue to work to meet that need. But next Friday, when there's a drop-off for the Mustang Pantry, we absolutely can use donations from everyone. It was completely wiped out this past week, which is both a good and a bad thing. We're sad to see the need, but we're happy that we had enough and we're able to serve a lot of people. Kudos to the volunteers who are working at the Mustang Pantry. They were excited after Wednesday's pantry. They worked really, really hard. They really busted their butts, but they served a lot of people, and they were glad to be able to do that for the community. Will there be a time when library books can be returned in order to be available for others? 3 new books and 1 speed read book. Yes, we're not worried about late fees, but there will be a time where we can do drop off and pick off. We're hoping in the next week or two, the library will be able to have their program up and running for drop off. And there is, I believe the box is still out there. If you want to drop them off, you certainly can. But we'll have a more robust program going in just a couple of weeks for drop off and pick up. That'll probably continue for a couple of weeks. And Patty actually answered my question there. Yeah, the Dropbox is still there, so we'll continue with that program, and we'll be able to get that library program up and running. I do want to remind everyone about our Citizen Call Center, 781-352-2362. I'll have Joe post the number because I think I just read it wrong. 2363 is the actual number. The Citizen Call Center is the best place to call for anyone who needs aid or assistance. That's where we're able to funnel a lot of these calls from. If you have any questions or any information, you can call there. The town hall switchboard is still open. If you know directly who you need to speak to, that's always an option for you. But we do encourage folks to contact the call center. We're actually looking, I think I mentioned last week, we may look to keep some version of the Citizen Call Center going post-COVID, where we're able to do it in such a decentralized and a remote manner that it may become sort of a 311 center or a central information center for the town, which is always tough to do in a community our size. Usually you can do them in very large cities. It's usually hard to do at our size because we can't just allocate full-time employees to something like that, but we may be able to keep that going forward, which we're excited about. We've got a couple questions about what can we or what are we able to do for small businesses, and that's a good question. One of the challenges, and it's a good and a bad thing, certain cities are known as entitlement communities with the Federal Community Development Block Grant Program. And what that means is every year they automatically get money for the federal government, and they're able to spend that money on a wide variety of programs, including direct assistance to business. We are not one of those communities, unfortunately, and it's a catch-22. We're glad we're not, because they are almost exclusively high poverty communities. So we're glad that we don't have some of those challenges, but it does mean that we don't have the same resources to assist businesses as they do. So they have money every year to do business assistance programs. And when the federal government released the CARES Act, they got automatic money available to help small businesses directly. What we've been focusing with, first and foremost, is trying to get information out there about the PPP loan program and the pandemic on insurance program for gig workers and 1099 workers, to try to get what support out there the other levels of government have. Our resources to directly give aid are next to nil. Some of these cities are able to give out $20,000 or $30,000 grants per business. We're looking at CDBG funding for that. The CDBG funding process is complex and usually takes many months to actually get any funding. We're trying to see if there's an avenue there to get some rental assistance or to get some sort of small business assistance funding. The challenge being, we think that by the time we'll have it, we're going to be 9 months down the road, and the businesses that would have needed it are not in the same condition they're in now. So we're looking into that. But what we are looking at the local level is a couple of different programs, some of which are a little unique and some of which you're seeing elsewhere. A quick question about camps going to open. We do think camps will be open. We'll have reduced capacity for the camps, but we're confident we will be able to get them open as long as the numbers don't change and go in the opposite direction. So the Board of Selectmen will likely be meeting next week. They met, took a first pass at a series of outdoor dining regulations. So we're looking at interim guidelines for outdoor dining to encourage outdoor dining for a couple of reasons. One, it's actually better from a public health standpoint than dining indoors. And two, when restaurants are able to reopen with a reduced capacity, we want to see if we can try to give them the opportunity to add some seats to increase their capacity in a safe way. And we think that outdoor dining is the way to do that. It would work for restaurants downtown where they would do some sidewalk seating. It could work for a restaurant along Route 1 where they may want to take a portion of their parking lot. And there may be some restaurants that are want to just put a couple tables out for folks to eat takeout on. So that's one of our initiatives. A second one we're looking at is closing Central Street off in front of the theater for weekends starting maybe late June, early July. We would place out, we'd probably place some AstroTurf down. We would place out picnic benches and cafe tables, and that would just be sort of an outdoor public dining area for Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays in the summer. There's a lot of restaurants within very short walking distance and even further within additional walking distance where you could go to Lewis's and get a Lewis burger. You could go to the Common Cafe. You could go to Spot or the OCC or Two Beirut, grab some takeout, and then sit outdoors and eat it. We should have our sound system for the Common in downtown up and running. We've been working on it for quite a while. It's been challenging, and we had a fairly small budget for it, so finding a way to fit it within that budget was quite the logistic challenge. Kudos to Light and DPW for making that happen. But the plan is weekends in the summer, starting late June, you'll have some sort of an ability to go and sit outside and do some outdoor dining in an open area on Central Street. We'd originally wanted to look at this a year or two down the road and do some other outdoor amenities, but we're thinking dining is the need to help restaurants, and we want folks to be able to get out of their houses and get the economy going again, but in a safe way that doesn't contribute to the spread of COVID. So then the Central Street Initiative, which we'll probably call Weekends on Central or something like that, is another program we're looking at. We're also talking to a lot of businesses in town to see if we can lease out at no cost for this summer only some of our park and field space for businesses to conduct classes outside. I shouldn't say businesses, think a karate studio or a dance studio. We're working with them to see if there's a need, because some of the guidelines that they may have to follow inside their facility may keep them shut down longer than the phase would allow them to. And it's obviously much safer to do this outdoors. So we're trying to gauge the need from them now, match it up with our park space, and see if we're able to make that work. And if we can, we might have the opportunity to say, look, you maybe a dance studio holds an outdoor class, on Friday evening at one of the fields or in one of the parks, because we're able to allocate that space to them to help them generate some cash flow, to get people out, to do it in a safe way, and as a way we can sort of help businesses with some existing initiatives. Full disclosure, I don't know karate or dance or CrossFit or any of those things, so the rec department is working on liaising with these businesses on some of the specifics to see if that's a program we could bring forward. And then last, we are looking at what initiatives we can do through the light department for to maybe encourage electric vehicle sales. That one's a little less developed, but we're hoping to have something soon where we might be able to encourage people, once auto dealers go back up, to use some of our energy incentive money to purchase, probably not hybrid, it'd probably have to be all electric vehicles. We have some incentives now. We're looking at what we can increase those incentives to try to help out in June, July, and August. So those are some of the local initiatives with the resources that we have that we're doing. Great question from Rachel. Thank you, Rachel, for everything you do. Is there anyone in the area that requires additional volunteers or any of the programs that the town is involved in? I don't know as of right now, but we will let you know. You can always email managers@norwoodma.gov if you're interested in volunteering, and we can let you know when we see opportunities. This is such a strange crisis in that normally you think of an emergency as there's a flood, so we can get 100 people down there to start filling sandbags and helping out. And we're getting a lot of requests from folks, how to help out. And it's tough for us because there's not as much granular that we could just put our hands on and say, hey, show up and fill sandbags and let's prevent the flood, or show up at the burned down building and help clean debris. So it's tough. We will be able to, you can always email us, and if we find opportunities, we will be able to let you know. Question from Sarah, do volunteers need to be available all day for the town election, or are shifts available? We do require it to be a full day shift. The half-day shifts just end up being sort of logistically challenging for us. So it's 7 to 8. It is a long day. It is rewarding. We do actually pay the poll workers, so we call them volunteers, but they're actually paid poll workers. So if you've never had an opportunity to do it before, you show up at the poll. We train you, of course. You don't just show up and ask to do it. We have to talk to you ahead of time. But we're absolutely looking for poll workers. You contact the town clerk's office. They would be more than happy to have a few more poll workers for the no-touch election. I actually have a draft of a flyer for the no-touch election that we had somebody make up that we just need to make a small edit to. Each voter will be given a bag. Then you fill out your ballot, and you don't actually give it to the poll worker. You give it to the machine, but the poll workers will be behind plastic screens. I will try to show everyone an image of what one of these screens looks like. We've had a great local vendor make them. So this is actually currently sitting at the Oldham right now. That brown is just the plastic covering the plexiglass. That actually comes off, of course. But you will walk up, and your friendly local poll worker will be sitting behind this type of screen, and they will be protected, and you will be protected. So we encourage everyone to vote. You can still vote absentee. You have to have a request into the clerk's office by, I believe, June 4th. But you can call or email the clerk's office and request an absentee ballot. So either vote absentee or vote in person. Either way, vote early and vote often. We encourage everyone to do that. Have you considered closing Washington, not Central, say Saturday evenings from 4 to 8? The ability to close Washington Street would be much more challenging logistically to reroute traffic and to reroute public safety, whereas Central Street, just in front of the theater, so we're not talking about anywhere else, would allow us to do it in a way that won't impact public safety. So it was identified not only because of its location adjacent to the common gives us additional space, but we need to make sure we maintain some traffic flow. Closing a street just for 4 or 5 hours ends up being very difficult. But it also comes to a larger discussion about what's the purpose of our downtown. If the purpose of downtown is to just facilitate traffic flowing, then we're never going to do anything great for downtown. We want to focus on what's best for the pedestrians while being mindful of the need to manage traffic. Washington Street being, of course, a little bit more challenging to close portions off. I mean, we do it for Norwood Day. We're able to do it once or twice a year. If we were to try to reroute too much traffic from Washington Street, it becomes a little bit of a more of a logistic challenge. But it's a great question. Any possibility of getting a few picnic tables spread out at the Chapel Street Park? That is a good idea, and we will look into that. Let me write that one down. We are ordering some additional picnic tables for the Common and for Central Street. And our downtown dining initiative would allow some of the restaurants on Washington Street to be able to use their sidewalk. We may block off the parking in front of some of these restaurants to either create additional walking space to maintain social distancing, or we may use that space. We're worried about if it's a little too close to the street, folks may not feel comfortable dining there. But great question. And more restaurants have access. Love to help, but have to work. I think, unfortunately, the typical workers are in at-risk categories. That is the case. A lot of our poll workers are in an at-risk category. So happy to cross-post that on the League of Women Voters page. Yes, we will get this out to the League, and we want to get everyone out there voting one way or another. Just some info about SNAP. DTA just received approval for online food purchases. That's great. So anyone who has SNAP benefits, DTA, which is the Department of Transitional Assistance, has just approved online food purchases. We know there's folks out there who are either have trouble getting to the grocery store or maybe are immunocompromised or in a high-risk category, and now they have the ability to do the online shopping, which is good. How can Helen run for a seat when she's been under investigation for hitting a pedestrian and state ethics violations? Well, we appreciate that comment. It is not COVID related, so I won't directly answer it other than to say anyone is eligible to run for office at any time. Is City Hall still by appointments only? Yes, please call us. We can take care of any service you need. You just got to call us. There are services we can offer either via the mail or online. So just call us, and City Hall won't be opening for a while. We can have appointments if there's some reason where you need to come in. There's no other way we can get a certain service taken care of. We can take care of that. We do appreciate that Town Hall being closed does place a burden on some folks, but we can get you any service you need via Town Hall, via either appointment or online. So I've covered Memorial Day. We'll get a link. If you look right at the front page of our website, there is a link to video by Veterans Agent Teddy Mulvihill about what we're doing for Memorial Day. This weekend is Memorial Day. We won't be having our traditional parade and services, but we are doing as much as we can do for our veterans for Memorial Day. Are we disinfecting the commonly used places in the town? It depends on what you want to define by a commonly used place in the town. All of our facilities are. Generally, outdoor areas like a park or a playground, we're not routinely disinfecting them. The actual risk of contamination from a swing set or something like that is actually pretty minimal. And the logistical ability to routinely clean swing sets or a slide is actually pretty, our ability to do that will be pretty limited. So those facilities, the parks, a park bench are still open. The actual risk of contamination from something like that is pretty minimal. They're actually not high touch surfaces when you think about it. We are looking we are looking at any of our places that are high touch, but a typical bench, believe it or not, is not really a high touch surface per se. But practicing good personal hygiene is always the best and safest route to go. What is the plan for town meeting given the governor's plan for reopening? We are at this point in time looking at having town meeting in the gym where we can safely maintain more of a social distancing. We did map out the auditorium. The challenge with the auditorium is when the way the seats are designed with 6 feet in between each seat and each person's seating, your capacity goes way, way, way down. So the gym was mapped out. We'll have PPE available for everyone. We will have 6 feet in between everyone. We're having a system where the microphones can be used so that they're not really touching people. We're dispensing with a lot of the show that comes beforehand, some of the speeches and the presentations. That'll all be done ahead of time. We'll get budget information out ahead of time to everyone. Normally we get it out ahead of time, of course, but we will be able to get all of that out, and we believe we can do it in a safe manner. Public health will be on board. You will be required to wear a mask, and we will have, I don't know if we're going to be doing temperature screenings. The verdict is still out on that one, but we'll have plenty of sanitizer stations. We're really looking at a no-touch town meeting as well. I know the discussion has been brought up about doing town meeting outdoors. There's quite a few concerns with that. One being it's really weather dependent, and we'd have to cancel town meeting and continue to reschedule until we had good weather. If we did it out on the football field, there's the field that then becomes weather dependent. The field isn't exactly ADA compliant. The stands are ADA compliant, but if it's really hot, the stands become quite uncomfortable. And then we worry about folks who don't do well in the humidity or in the high heat if it ends up being a warm period. We'd have to move it to a daytime because if we get it into the evening, not only are there no lights on the field, mosquitoes could become an issue, and we are concerned. We will be concerned this year with Triple E, just like we are concerned about Triple E every year. So outdoor sounds good. I know we'd all like to think about, kind of having a good time out on the field, and it's kind of a cool idea. There's just as many concerns about protecting people and doing it safely on the field as there are indoors. So the gym will be limited likely to town meeting members. And if there's folks who want to watch, spectators, we don't get too many members of the public just wanting to watch town meeting. They'll probably be asked to sit in the auditorium. Most of my department heads will be joining remotely. So we'll have sort of a computer set up where if somebody does want to ask the police chief a question, we'll just pull the police chief up. So it's just reducing the number of people in the room to the bare minimum available. Legislative bodies are exempt from the number, the sort of 10 indoor person rule, because we do know that business just has to get conducted. We do have to conclude town meeting. We think, like the election, we can do it in a safe manner. If everyone does their preparation ahead of time and asks questions ahead of time and is ready to go, we see no reason town meeting should go too long. We have intentionally shaved as much out of the warrant as possible. And the reason we've shaved as much out of the warrant as possible is so that town meeting can be as quick as possible. So all, any land use articles have been pushed to the fall. Any bylaw changes have been pushed to the fall. Some of the technical changes have been pushed to the fall that we will be looking at. It really is just internal transfers in the budget and a handful of capital items. Most of the capital plan has been pushed to the fall for approval, just so we can try to get through town meeting in one night. It should be fairly quick and straightforward. Knock on wood, because you don't know if that ever happens, but the goal is to do it quickly. That way, hopefully in the fall, when we're in phase 4, we can spread it out over maybe September, October, November, have a few more sessions, and try to tackle maybe land use at one, bylaws in another, and then budget changes in a final one. So we are looking forward to that. Hopefully town meeting will not take too long. What if we do not achieve a quorum in the town meeting show? So there's always a challenge with the quorum. There is a bill pending before the legislature. It's primarily for open town meetings, but it would allow a reduction in quorum. If you don't pass a budget by the end of June, you automatically go to a budget that is not less than 1/12 of the prior year's budget. So we would be fine until we manage to get a quorum. That ends up being an accounting nightmare behind the scenes for the accounting staff, for the school business office. You can operate on what's known as a 1/12 budget for several months if you have to. It's just not an ideal situation. It could actually end up costing the town more money, because your 1/12 budget that first month is not 1/12 of the prior year. It's not less than 1/12 of the prior year. We have a lot of bills that we pay right in July to get an early pay discount. Our insurance is an example of that. We, like any home or business, have insurance on our properties, on our buildings, and we cut that check right in the beginning of July because we get a couple percentage point discount by doing so. So we're either having a 1/12 budget where that first month is actually 25% of the town's budget, or we're possibly losing out on taxpayer benefits or a savings to the taxpayers. Salt is another item that we buy salt for the winter. We actually try to get some of our salt in August, September, because we get an early pay discount when we order early. So we want to take advantage of those 1% and 2%. And it's never a lot of money in one pot, but where we can pay early and receive a discount, when we know we're going to cut the check, we like to pay early and cut the check and save the taxpayers money. I think we could sell tickets to town meeting, but that's just me. Julie with a great question. What happens if there's a second wave in the fall is worse? So there's a couple of things with the second wave. One is, you need to remember, if we come back in the fall and we're just where we are, both the country, the Commonwealth, and Norwood are in a heck of a better situation than we were a couple of months ago. One of the big problems we faced nationally was a lack of PPE. We're not quite over that yet, but we're better than we were. The supply chain is gearing up to be able to produce a lot of PPE, to be able to produce a lot of tests. So a lot of the things we just simply didn't have 4 months ago or 3 months ago, we'll be able to have. So even a second wave that has a higher number, we're better equipped to handle it. We're better educated to handle it. We have the systems in place. And so that's sort of part one of why a second wave may not be as bad. We're going to be more prepared for it. If the end of February, we could have ordered 20,000 masks and all the sanitizer and everything in the world, and hospitals weren't worried about running out of PPE, we would have not only handled it better, but we would have been in better shape overall. So that's number one, why we think we're actually going to be in a better position if there is sort of a second surge. Number two is, hopefully we're better. if every single person had washed their hands 4 or 5 times a day from January 1st on, the numbers wouldn't be as high as they were. So if we are practicing good personal hygiene and always washing our hands, if we're wearing masks, if we're disinfecting high-touch surfaces regularly, if we're making sure that you cough, either A, you're wearing a mask, or you do the vampire cough and cough in your elbow, if we all do those things, if that becomes the social norm, that's our strongest weapon against COVID. It's not a vaccine. It's not a lockdown. That's our strongest weapon. Doing those things every single day, even if by August 25th, everything is warm and sunny and we're back at normal and we're all out at a bar having a drink or at the beach swimming or whatever it is, if you're still doing those things, there's no way a second wave is going to be any worse than it was. We can combat it, we can beat it, and we can win if we're better at what we do. So we'll be better prepared, but hopefully we'll be better behaved. We'll be doing more and we'll be smarter about it. We're also not sure when, if you look at the statistics of when second waves, and for anyone who doesn't know, that's the idea that you have a virus that sort of makes its rounds and then it comes down for a while and then it comes up again. Some of that historically has been because your guard gets let down and then you go back to normal. We cannot go back to normal. If we don't go back to normal, that second wave is greatly mitigated. We also don't know if we're also seeing part of what might be part of a second wave. We think COVID was here a lot longer than we were detecting it. So were people getting sick in December and January and, we started to do the testing and the numbers ramped up, or were people getting sick in September, October of last year? So this could still be, part of a first wave, or we could be seeing a second wave and we just weren't as aware of a first wave. So we don't know, and I'm certainly not an epidemiologist, but in terms of having better equipment, having better knowledge, having better systems, and us doing better as a community, we're going to be better situated to hit that. But we also don't know where we are in the whole epidemiological spectrum of when the virus started and when it ended. So we think we're going to be in a better position. And I think if there is that sort of second wave, we can combat it better. There may be one of the theories out there is there might be a lot of little spikes. Our ability to get those people into self-quarantine, to get them tested, and to put in good practices when it does happen should reduce the need or the ability to have some sort of super spreaders, as long as we're being good to each other. Wash your hands, wear a mask, don't cough, don't go out in public when you're sick. And people who are working from home, for businesses out there, if your people can work from home, work from home. If there's no need to take the T in and to go to an office in Boston, try to work from home. The more we can do these things that don't hurt, the better we'll be at managing that second wave. Plans for canceling Norwood Day. It's tough to say. I don't know if Norwood Day is going to happen this year, and there's a couple of reasons for that. We may be in phase 4 by the time Norwood Day would normally happen. The challenge is that Norwood Day there needs to be a lot of fundraising ahead of time, and there needs to be a lot of planning ahead of time. So it's a challenge that we may be ready on that day, but we need to make that go or no decision soon. So if we, maybe we look at doing something on a smaller scale, or it would be unfortunate, but maybe we do take a mulligan this year to make sure that next year can be safer. I mean, remember, Norwood Day brings 10,000 people and dumps them on Washington Street. It is a classic large venue, large gathering. So we'd love to see it happen. We want to see it happen, but we're going to have to look at the numbers, and we may need to make a decision that, we don't want to do it. And it may come around that by the end of September, we think we could have done it, but it may be a case of better safe than sorry. Although we would certainly all be disappointed if we didn't have Norwood Day this year. That would be quite challenging. Other questions, maybe just fireworks for it. That is something we're actually looking into too, is whether or not we could do just fireworks. Do we do a smaller Norwood Day operation? Do we do something along the lines? We'd like to do something, and I think you will certainly see something. It just may not be the Norwood Day we normally have, but that doesn't mean it's going away forever. It would be just one. It might be a change this year if we have to make a change this year. And we would definitely like to see if we could do fireworks. I know a lot of other towns have canceled their sort of town days, and they've canceled fireworks. So that might be something on deck. We started a harvest festival of sorts last year. That may be something we can expand or do something a little bit bigger this year in place of Norwood Day, because it might be a little bit later. So there's a lot of different options there as well. Let me scroll down. Other questions from the public. I think I've covered everything that I had on my list. We've talked about the phases. We've talked about we believe pools and camps will be open. We don't have the exact details yet, and that's, of course, subject to changes in where we are in the different phases. The library and the civic and town hall will open slowly because we're looking to do it safely for both our staff and the community. But library services will be up and running soon. and the pool camps, and the dump will be open this Saturday. Question from Matt Lane: has there been any thought about how we can put our first responders in the best possible position for a potential second wave? So there's a couple of things there. Some of the changes at the police department that we've made as a result of COVID-19, they've gone to sort of a digital roll call. So they're in the station less and interacting unnecessarily less. Those are actually going to be a permanent change. They were originally put in because we said, how do we do this in the era of COVID? And what the chief and the department has found is that they're actually working. So there's some changes to our practices that are actually going to be permanent going forward. And we're happy about that. We found and sort of discovered some of these things as we've gone through that are going to be sort of permanent practices. You'll see things like masks and PPE going on permanently. I think, as most people know, the fire department is currently set up in 3 different facilities right now. And we did that for a specific reason. We run 15 firefighters per shift. So if we had a COVID case, there's a potential that all 15 firefighters would end up going down. So we've spread them out into 3 different facilities so that if we did have a positive hit, the likelihood that that would happen is greatly reduced. Westwood had a case where they had to close a whole station, one of their 2 stations, because of a COVID positive case. If we had to quickly move back to that model, and we're not back at the fire station yet, we may not have the full crews at the fire station for some time, that we're looking at maybe phase 3 or a couple weeks into phase 3, we might go back to that. But now that we're set up, we know how to do it. That's something we can get up and running fairly easily. So if we end up falling back and there's a heavy spread, we're able to move right back into our position, sort of spreading out the crew. We're in better shape with PPE now than we were a few months ago, but that's going to be something that going into the fall, knowing that we have all the PPE that we need, we now have some experience treating COVID cases, that's going to be one of our best tools going forward. So if there is a second wave, it's okay, what did we do before? We plug in our programs. We're now a little bit better experienced at better handling it. So that's a great question. What do we know about planning and fundraising for the anniversary party? Its date is still getting closer. Yeah, so the 150th anniversary we do have coming up. It's around 1.5 years away. There's been some emails back and forth about it. We'll eventually resume the planning and the fundraising of that, probably just a couple of months. We may need to keep it. There may be some digital meetings that we can do over the summer. So it's likely just a delay of a few months on that, and then we'll get around to continuing to plan what we're actually going to do for our 150th anniversary. We'd like to at least get into one of the next phases and get maybe a month or 2, get town meeting and the election behind us. And then we can look at the different programs that we can do related to our 150th anniversary, which we think is going to be a great celebration. So that'll still go on. It'll be interesting in the era of COVID-19, but we'll be able to make sure we can get the 150th celebrated one way or another. Other questions from the public? We've had some good questions on the chat there. As we wait for a few of them, I will continue to review. We've talked about the different 4 phases and what's going to happen and what's going to change. Getting there faster and safer is really up to individuals to be safe about their practices. We've talked about food security. I encourage you, if you haven't yet, find the Feed Norwood page. It's doing great. It's a lot of the material on there is good. That's where we're pushing out a lot of our food security information on the Feed Norwood page. We've talked about some of our downtown and outdoor initiatives and what we're looking at. And as a reminder, the Citizen Call Center, we have the information there. Please call the Citizen Call Center. The election is June 8th. The polls will be open. You can get an absentee ballot up through, I believe it's June 4th. So you can call or email the clerk's information. That information is also the pinned comment right here in the comments. So we want to continue to make sure that you get out and vote, whether it's by absentee ballot or if you do go to the polls. We will have our safe election on the polls, our no-touch election. Everyone will be given PPE. The workstations will be sanitized in between voters voting. And I will show everyone a picture I did earlier and we'll have these up for the election. So your friendly neighborhood poll worker will be behind a shield like that, if you will. I believe the League of Women Voters is holding a candidates forum on May 28th. So you can always email questions to the League of Women Voters. I'm going to rely on somebody to put their email address in the comments. I don't know it off the top of my head, but if you do have questions for candidates for office for the town, they're always a great resource to reach out to them. I believe it's May 28th. They will be hosting a digital candidates forum, which I think is a really cool idea. So we're happy with the league that the league will be doing that. I'll be going to the Oldham tomorrow with the town clerk to personally inspect our plastic shields and sort of get our mock setup ready for the election. There's been a lot of work going in to the election this year. So we're going to have a safe election this year. Thank you, Sarah, and you two have a good night as well. We're just at about the hour mark. This is usually where we pause. I will take more questions if folks have them. I think I've covered all of my announcements. We did our giveaway earlier. I would reread the names, but we'll get back in touch with those people because it's 8 different pieces of paper. So the town or Feed Norwood will be reaching out to you in the next day or so to let you know if you've won a gift certificate. lwvnorwoodma@gmail.com is to get candidate questions to the League of Women Voters for the Norwood, Mass Candidates Forum. So that was just posted in the comments. And any questions for the selectmen's candidates or any other positions that are running, by all means, email the league and they'll look at whether they can include it in their May 28th online candidates forum. It is May 28th at 7 p.m. It will be on NCM, so that should be a good time. With that, I hope I'll stick around for another minute as I usually do for any questions people have. We have a lot of exciting things to come. I think I said a few weeks ago, the light is shining through the clouds. I think it's shining more brightly now. We're going to have some exciting business and economic development initiatives. We'll see some outdoor dining on Central Street and throughout the town this summer. I'm certain of that. We're looking at other ways to help businesses, and slowly but surely we are emerging from this, and we're going to emerge on the other side stronger than we have, and we're going to continue to take care of people. But it does rely on personal responsibility from each and every one of us. And as Courtney just said, the forum is only for the selectmen's race, which I think is the only race on the ballot. Questions are directed to all candidates, not specific candidates. So email the league for questions about the candidates forum. I hope everyone has a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. Hopefully this will be our last holiday weekend in a quarantine type of state, and hopefully as we start to emerge from this, we'll be able to be together with our friends and family soon enough. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We're going to continue to bring these every hour for about a week, so we'll have another one of these next Thursday. We'll have even more updates then on a number of projects that we have going on related to COVID-19 and the town's response. I also, one more plug for the town's community testing initiative. We were the first community in Massachusetts to arrange its own local testing program without help from the private sector and without the state coming in and doing it for us. So kudos to the team in Norwood and Norwood Hospital for making that happen. You can get a test in Norwood. Anyone can go get tested at Norwood Hospital. That information is on the town's website. And so far, we've had a couple dozen tests come through it. They've all been negative, so that's a good thing. That's showing that the community spread has really slowed, which is one of those good key metrics for us to begin opening the community back up. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, everyone, for joining us. Everyone have a great weekend, have a great Memorial Day, and hopefully the weather is good. I'll stick around for a minute, but feel free to log off now. Everyone have a great weekend, and thank you for joining us.